Great.
All right. Any questions, guys? Anyone? Any questions before we get started? Mhm. Mhm. Yes. Yes. It will be like that. Yes. Yes. Any more questions? Anyone? Any questions before we get started with this session? Sorry, can you please? Okay, yesterday's class in 5 to 10 minutes. So again, yesterday's class was more of a demonstration on how the clients basically were, kind of working on. You will have to do one revision of yesterday's session. The reason I'm telling is that it's not really theory; it's a lot of practical. So just to give you a brief, we did RBACs, like we said, what is a contributor, what is owner, how do you assign them? If you assign multiple, let's say, RBACs out there, what is going to be the end result? How are the permissions going to, let's say, conflict with each other, and so on and so forth. So these are a couple of things we were discussing upon. So you will have to, let's say, try it out and then come up with questions so that I can, let's say, answer those things.
Hello, sir.
Good, please.
Sir, yesterday you told that in resource manager is there, sir. So we
Mhm.
created developer and tester. So in
Okay.
that developer we assigned to one user, sir, for
Okay.
contributor role. And
Okay.
in the subscription key we have given the reader role.
Okay.
So yesterday you told reader and contributor comes contributor, no, sir.
I'm sorry. Your question was lost. Can you please come again, please?
Sir, in when we given the user for access of tester in resource group, role has given to contributor,
Okay.
and the
Okay.
subscription key we given that reader role assignment.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, so and again when I log into user
Mm-hmm.
after opening the resource group, I can see that tester is there, sir. Tester and developer also I can see.
Yes, tester and developer
But
will be there because.
yeah, sir. But tester I can read only. For developer I can access all right, sir.
Okay, because does the tester already just had a read access?
Yes, sir.
So if yes, then it's only a read that the tester will get. But the developer, on the other hand, will get both the contributor and the read out there because you have given a contributor access out there for,
Yes,
let's say, the developer as well.
yes, sir. Sir, and again in user field, I am created new resource, sir. So it's telling that you have not subscribed that key.
So you are
So,
not
but
subscribed.
yeah, sir. It's telling that free trial is not permitted.
Mm-hmm.
It's telling, sir, when I'm creating new resource, like already tester and developer is there, no, sir. So I'm
Okay.
giving some other name deploy.
Okay.
So in that time, when I'm creating the new resource, so the
Okay.
subscription key which I given to user is reader.
Correct.
So then I am not able to create the new user. Is it right, sir?
That's correct. I mean, you won't be able to create a new resource group. That is how it should be, right? Because as a reader, you should not be able to create anything. You should just be able to see things out. That's it.
So only when the user has the access from resource group, he given to contributor. So if
Okay.
the subscription key is reader and
Okay.
the user in the user resource group is contributor,
Okay.
so then I can in that resource group only I can access. Like if I given the
Correct.
contributor to tester, so
Correct.
if I go to tester resource, so in that
Mhm.
whatever the access I have, I can access.
Correct. Only in that particular resource group. Apart from that, you won't be able to, let's say, go ahead and do anything on the subscription if you have a reader on the subscription out there as such.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yes. Any more questions, guys? Main difference between contributor and owner. You tell me, what is the difference between contributor and an owner? Uh, As a contributor, did you try adding another resource or another user into your subscription? Can you add as a contributor? Then what is the difference between contributor and owner? As a contributor. Mhm. Okay. No, it will also show for a contributor. You'll have to go inside the airbag save. But my question to you is that you are a contributor. Can you come into your subscription, go into identity and access management and add someone else? Yes, sure about that. Then what is the difference between owner and a contributor then? Sorry, owners? Owner is the authorization. So my question here is that you're a contributor. I have given you a contributor role out here. You are coming to the subscription. Like me, you are coming to the subscription out here, going into Visual Studio Enterprise subscription, then going into something called identity and access management. My question is that as a contributor, can you add this? Can you add this? Are you sure? Did you all try this? If you all try this, hmm, you can add for sure. Did you try this? Then you should have tried it, right? Very firstly, I was telling that owner and contributor, the biggest difference is that contributor cannot add a user. Contributor doesn't have the right to add a user, whereas owner does. That's the main difference. But yes, I'm sorry. He can give the role assignment. When you say he can give the role assignment, who can give the role assignment? Contributor? No, contributor cannot do a role assignment. When you say user, what kind of a role the user has? Okay, so as a contributor, you won't be able to do a role assignment. There will not be something called as a role assignment that is given to you as a contributor out there. Only an owner can do a role assignment. A contributor cannot do a role assignment out here. I'm sorry. One of the end user, like a developer or a tester or someone else like that. So then he will also have to make him as a owner. So you will have to add one more role to him called owner. So owner will take a precedence over the contributor role that you already do have. So it just depends upon what kind of a role that you're giving to what kind of person out here, depending upon which they can go ahead, add, delete resources, read resources, or add other users like you have the permission as an owner out there as such. But as a contributor, I cannot do a role assignment. This is something that we have seen, right? Like as a contributor, I logged in, and once I logged in as a contributor, I cannot go ahead and click on add role assignment, and I cannot do all those things. These are disabled. Yes, any more questions here?
Sir, for we given the contributor for user,
Okay.
sir, and then when we yesterday I have mail no sir, like I am not able to see the when I give the owner access
Mhm.
to access to user.
Okay.
So I am not able to create the user. So you have told that in that access.
Mhm.
So I can give the like role for a global administrator.
Correct.
So I have given sir. Then I am able to create the user in
Yes.
user
Mhm.
which I given the owner role.
Okay.
So I have changed that role to contributor, same user.
Okay. Okay.
So then also I can able to create the new user in contributor role, sir. Why?
Because you can create a user and contributor because you have given a global administrator role. A global
Okay.
administrator role is something that you have given in your Active Directory that will
Ah,
allow
yes,
you
sir.
to add the user. But
Oh,
that will not let you go ahead and let's say add a role out there. So there are
okay, sir.
roles,
Okay.
there are additions.
Like
So you can
only I
add the
can
user.
create that user.
Correct.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Any more questions here, guys? I'm sorry. Can you come again, please? Hmm. Okay. Can you find who will delete? A good question as a contributor because there are multiple people who are working on your Azure subscription. If someone deletes something, can you find who deleted? Yes. For which I will have to go into subscription. There is something called activity log, system generated logs, which you can let's say go ahead. For example, here I done something and something like that. So you can go ahead and tell me that, oh, you can go ahead and let's say tell that, okay, fine, I need logs for the last 1 month. Say apply, and this will give you the logs on whoever whatever they did on your Azure subscription, deleted something, updated something. See, deleted role assignment and all that stuff. So if I see who deleted this, who updated this, I'll be able to get who deleted, who updated, and so on and so forth. And you can also, sorry, good. Can you retrieve it? Yes, you have this one called download CSV file. If you click on this one, you'll just go ahead, download this particular CSV file, give it to you in the form of an Excel, and you can go ahead and retrieve all these. You can go ahead and retrieve all these things out here. Yes. Any more questions here? Mhm. Okay. How can we make a group? So to make a group, you will have to come here, go into Active Directory, go into groups, and then go ahead and say new group. Once you go ahead and say new group, just say group name is security, just say group name out here, and then say create. That's the only thing that you have to do. Yes. Any more questions? Anyone? Any more questions?
The groups when we create the group type we are giving security, no sir. Like
Mhm.
can we give another? So when we create in
No,
the
it's
group,
not the group name. This is the group type.
yes, a group type.
There's something called 365. If you have an on-premise application that is using Office 365, this is something
Okay,
that you give. But normally, when you create an Active Directory group on the Azure Active Directory, this is on the cloud, you go ahead and give it as a security group, and then go ahead and give a group name. If you want to
okay,
give a description, you can go ahead and give a description out here. You can say who are the owners, who are, let's say, the members of this particular group, and then go ahead and hit the create button out here.
okay, sir.
Okay. 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 Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Correct. Hmm. Okay. Hmm. Okay. Correct. Okay. Correct. Access management, resources, and all these things. Correct. Correct. Hmm. Hmm. Right. Resource virtualizer, then events, and a lot of things out here. See the problem. Yeah. Yes. So the problem here with explaining each and everything out here. So I did try this out with earlier batches where we go ahead explain each and every blade out here. So let's say when I say resource visualizer, now you won't be able to see anything out here. It'll just tell you what are all the resources that is there in your resource group. So resource group is nothing but a folder that will let you create, let's say something like, for example, if you see this is a resource visualizer out here, which will help you tell you that there's a virtual network, there is a storage account inside this particular resource group. Now to explain this, I'll have to first explain what is a virtual network and then what is a storage account, and then this will make sense. So a lot of tabs out here are in such a way that once I go into the syllabus and then come back and then explain this out, it'll really make a lot of, let's say, help out there. Yes, we do. Again, all these blades is something that we don't use. Like we don't use everything out there, but whatever that we let's say use on a day-to-day basis, that's something I'll definitely cover out here. Again, it will be a little incremental, so just follow along with the classes so that you can connect the dots later. Okay? The reason being, a lot of things in the cloud are in such a way that we have to, let's say, first do a later resource, then come back to this particular resource and then connect both the dots out there. Because if I just go here and for example, if I go into, let's say, subscription, and if I click on subscription and if I start explaining overview and all these things, diagnose and solve problem, if I do all these things out here, it will be a little overwhelming to understand this at this particular point in time. Reason being, we haven't introduced resources yet. So once we introduce resources, once we come back, then this will start making, let's say, a lot of, let's say, understanding out there as such. Yes. Any more questions, guys? Again, guys, one thing that I would suggest you all is that, see, these classes are now starting to become very much practical. Earlier, in the first 2 or 3 days, the classes were theoretical. So even without going into the portal, you would have understood all those things out. But once practicality starts, you will have to, let's say, start implementing this in practice in your Azure subscription. Only then you'll be able to understand how things really work out. You'll have to, let's say, try contributors. You'll have to, let's say, try reader. You'll have to, let's say, try owner and all these things out here. So once you do that, that's when you'll be able to understand what exactly this is and how exactly this is implemented and so on and so forth out there. So that would be my request. Try this out. Again, even if you are lagging a little bit, it's okay. Just go through the classes. Again, come back and then ask me questions. I'm okay to take those questions out there and then explain. Again, I do not, let's say, put time limit telling that 5 minutes only is for questions now. If there are questions, they have to be answered before I move forward. So how many of our questions are there? If they are not getting answered, you can meet me personally. I'll help you all with, let's say, understanding the same thing out there as such.
Kiran, I have a small thing.
Mhm.
Like
Good.
yesterday, I have worked on. I mean, I try to invoke the user, invite the user. Sorry, invite the user.
Okay.
So what I have
Okay.
done, like, I have opted the option of invite user, and I have provided the
Okay.
existing email ID.
Okay.
And the moment when I logged with that ID,
Hmm.
I'm not able to get into the portal.azure. It's something else. My apps, it is getting mapped. So it
Yes.
that means like I have to register with that mail ID for portal.azure.com, or how it's going to be like.
Not really. Like off late, I have seen this behavior. So when you invite a user, especially it's taking you to my apps and all these things out. That is the Microsoft 365 page where it is, let's say, diverting you. So once it
Okay.
diverts you to that page, just let's say open a different tab and then do portal.azure.com. You'll automatically be redirected to portal.azure.com and then go into a subscription directly. So that my
But
apps, just yeah. Hmm?
no, but still it is saying like you don't have registered with this ID. That is kind of message I'm getting.
When you say when it says you don't or you do not, let's say, register with that particular ID, can you just send me a screenshot of, let's say, your user account? I just want to see what is the error that you're getting there, and then I can divert. I mean, then I can, let's say, correct it accordingly.
Sure, I will do that. To the
Sure.
mail ID of the class Azure dot something, right?
Yes, this is the same thing. Classes@devops@gmail.com. If you can just send a
Okay.
screenshot to me on what is the error that you're getting. If I'm not able to understand the screenshot, I'll connect with you and then I'll, let's say, resolve that particular issue that you kind of face
I
out
have
there.
taken that. So it is saying like my apps. There are no apps to show. Hide this collection and all. I'll send that screenshot with you.
Yeah, please do, so that I can, kind of look at that.
Sure, sure. Thank you.
Yes, any questions, guys? Anyone, any questions here? So just to recap, this is what we have right now. We started off with a tenant, and now we are telling that tenant is nothing but a space that you get in the cloud, so that you can start your journey. And again, to register your tenant, you will have to just go to something called portal.azure.com. And once you are inside portal.azure.com, it's going to ask you what is your ID if you have one thing, or do you want to register something new and all these things out. Once you do that, you will be getting something known as a tenant ID. So tenant ID is unique for everyone. No two people with two different IDs can have the same tenant ID. If I am creating a tenant with 27 something like that, you will definitely not get that ID as such out there. Even 1 or 2 digits will, let's say, change as such out there. After creating a tenant, you go into something known as subscription. Subscription now will give you a license to go ahead and start using the cloud. And once you create a subscription, you create the next or the smallest resource in Azure that you can create, which is a resource group. Again, in order to create this particular resource group, you will have to at least have a write access. If you are a reader, you won't be able to create this out. So you will have to at least have a write access onto your Azure subscription so that you can go ahead and, let's say, do all these things out here. Great. So now you have a tenant. Again, under one tenant, you can have multiple subscriptions. Under one subscription, you can have multiple resource groups. So it's now spanning out things out right now. And under this particular resource group, is where we are now proposing that we'll go ahead and create resources, our own resources out here, and so on and so forth. Now, the very basic purpose of cloud. Now, the first cloud that I have ever used was drive.google.com. That's the Google Drive basically that I've used, or Microsoft OneDrive. That was what cloud which I knew before I got into, let's say, the IT industry and understood what cloud is. So for me, drive.google.com is nothing but a space where I can store my photos or videos and back them up. So for me, the bare basic definition of cloud was to just go ahead and back up everything that I had, because my system did not really provide a lot of space. Like back then you had only 64 GB memories and all that, 64 GB, let's say, hard drives and all that stuff. So putting it inside the cloud was helping a lot of people out there. The same concept also occurs in Azure, wherein it tells you that, what, I'll give you unlimited space. You can store things out, and you can process things at a later point in time, not only storage. The point of a commercial cloud like Azure, AWS, GCP, they're all business clouds out here. If I was a business, I want to store, I could have also stored in OneDrive. I could have also stored in, let's say, Google Drive and all that stuff. But I'm not doing that. I'm using Azure, I'm using AWS, I'm using this one. Reason being, it's not just for storage, it's for processing, it's for allowing someone else to access, let's say, your data and all these things out. For which I go to Microsoft and I tell Microsoft that, what, I now want to start storing my data. I have a tenant, I have created a subscription, as you said. I also created a research group. I have users, I have, let's say, assigned them accesses and all these things out. Now I have some data. I want to store the data in the Azure cloud. Can you tell me how should I store this out? This is what is the question that you're asking to Microsoft. Microsoft in written is replying back telling that, okay, I understand you want to store the data. Can you tell me what type of a data you want to store? Then I say, I'm not too sure about what do you mean by the type of a data, because I have a lot of images, I have a lot of videos, I have a lot of files and all that I want to store. So Microsoft says, hold on. When I mean type of data, I need a technical answer there. And the type of data are two different things. There are generally data is classified into two different categories. One being structured data, the other one being unstructured data. The other one being unstructured data out here. So two types out here. One structured, the other is unstructured. Let's look at structured data. Let's take an example of a structured data. See how a structured data really looks like. Let's take a very simple example. Let's go to Google and say structured data, and let's see the images out here. Let's see this out, and let's look for a very, very basic example. And let's see. Let's see if I am able to open this out in a new link. All right, looks good. This is a okay. This is now a structured data out here. Why do I mean this is a structured data? Is because there is a proper relationship between the row 1 or the column 1, the column 2, column 3, and column 4. Multiple things out here. So if looking at this particular table, I'm just asking you all to look at this one. At this particular table, I ask you a question telling that, can you identify from this particular table who all are, let's say, the people who got a BSc degree? Can you do that? You just do one thing. You go here, see, okay, in this particular column, who has a BSc degree, and then you say, okay, fine, John and Michael, these both have a degree. Meaning, what you are doing backend in your mind is you are relating that column called degree with name and telling me that, okay, fine, this name called John has a degree called something like this. And by this, I would also be able to tell what is the age of John and what is the age of Michael. I would also be basically telling, if I would say that, can you tell me all the PhD candidates above the age of 50? You'll be able to simply go here and say, okay, fine, this is 51. So this is above 50. So then relate this out and get the data out here. Meaning you're questioning the data, meaning you're querying the data. This is called a query out here. And this data is called structured, or you can also call this as a relational data. Reason being, you're able to relate one column, one table, or one row into other. I mean, let's say with the other column, other table, and all. I mean, with the other column and all these things. And all such structured and relational data in such a kind of an example. Again, this is a very bare basic example out here. You can have, let's say, multiple things. You can have, let's say, thousands of rows, thousands of columns, and all that stuff. And by default, Microsoft tells you that okay, fine. If you have structured data out here, if you have relational data out here, please store it in traditional DBMS, database management systems. Like go for SQL, or if you want to, let's say, go something advanced, go for MySQL. Or if you want to go something open source, go for Mongo, Cassandra. You have a lot of databases that are available out there using which you can store such kind of a structured data. For example, let's say this can be the data of, let's say, an entire organization containing employees, their blood groups, their addresses, and all that stuff. It can have a list of things. And I just want to run one simple command telling, okay, fine, I want all the employees age above 51 and get, let's say, blood type of so much. I want to get a list. I want to get a list of it. It's a query language like SQL, source query language, or MySQL, or let's say some different, let's say, query language out here. So all these data needs to be stored in databases like SQL and so on and so forth. There is also another format of a data. For example, images, videos, let's say a lot of things like that, like files and all these things out. So let's say I give you an image, just some random image out here. And if I, from this particular image, if I ask you one question that, you know what, who's, let's say, in that particular image, would you be able to identify as the administrator? Until and unless that person is not famous, you won't be able to identify, which means it is a non-relational data, meaning you cannot relate. It's very difficult to relate an image with the name of a person, the age of a person, then PhD and all that stuff. No, it's very, very difficult to, let's say, find out that particular information. And all this non-relational data or unstructured data is stored in a specialized resource called storage account in Azure. And that is what we are getting into, something known as a storage account service in Azure, which will help you hold unstructured data, which is in a NoSQL format. NoSQL as in you don't have to use any SQL commands, just take the data, dump it in, you're good. And normally, when you, let's say, really look at things in the real-time environment, any organization will have unstructured data more than they have the structured data. They can have logs, they can have a lot of information out here in an unstructured format, and they would now like to go ahead and, let's say, start creating something called storage account. So the solution here is to go ahead and create something known as a storage account. And then I ask Azure, okay, fine, what do I need? Azure tells you need a tenant, you need a subscription, you also need a resource group. Under a resource group, you can now start creating something known as a storage account out here, which looks something like this. This is the image of a storage account. And under one subscription, you can have many under one resource group, you can have many, let's say, storage accounts out here. And one storage account cannot be under multiple resource groups, meaning it's a one-to-one relationship. Under one, or a storage account at any given point in time can only be attached to one particular resource group. You cannot have a storage account, let's say, spread or spanning across multiple resource groups out here. So let's look at that. Let's come here into the Azure portal, and I want to create a storage account out here. So what you can do is either go ahead, search for storage accounts. You can go here, select storage accounts out here, or click on, let's say, the left, and just go to all the resources and say storage accounts, or write in your screen. If you have used the storage account service, you'll be able to see this particular icon. Any of these ways, I'm good with that. I'll say storage accounts out here. Now I already have a storage account. I was doing some demo as a part of which I created something. In your case, again, you will just see this as an empty screen telling that there is no storage account. Do you want to get started? You'll say, okay, fine, great. Let's get started. I'll say create this out. Now, just like a resource group, we went ahead, clicked on the create button. And in a resource group, what are all the fields that we filled out, guys? Can anyone tell me when you create a resource group, what are all the fields that you filled out? Name, region, name and region. And also we said, what is the subscription? Three things. These three are the parameters that you give to create a resource in a storage account. Let's see that. Very firstly, it's asking you what is the project details, and this where Azure is asking you, do you have a valid subscription? If you do you have a valid resource group? I'll say okay, fine, let me check that out. I have a name which is Visual Studio Enterprise subscription. Then it is telling me, can you give me the name of a resource group out here? And if I click on this, I have my developer resource group, my test resource group, and all these things out. If you don't want any of them, you can say create new out here. You can directly create a resource group from here. So if I click on this one, it's just going to ask you what is the name of the resource group. I'll say first hyphen storage rg, and I'll say okay. So now it's going to tell you that okay, fine, as a process of storage account creation, I'll also go ahead and create a resource group for you. Shouldn't be an issue. And then it says okay, fine. It'll just tell you, it'll just scroll down and it's telling you instance details. Any resource in Azure, like for example, we are creating a storage account today. Any resource in Azure is called as an instance. It's just called as an instance out here. So I'll say okay, fine, instance details, and just scroll down, and it is asking you to give a storage account name. Now for a resource group name, I wasn't really specific. I just went ahead, gave any kind of a name. Let's try to create a storage account with a name called storage. So I want to go ahead and create this name, and as in when I go ahead and give this, it gives me an error telling that, you know what, the storage account name is already taken. So very first rule to create a storage account is that the name should be globally unique. When you are creating a resource group, I did not put this. I just said the name of the resource group should be unique in your subscription, meaning in your subscription, you cannot have a resource group or you cannot have two different resource groups with the same name. When I'm creating a storage account right now, I am telling that the name should follow a globally unique character, which means no one else in the world using Azure portal should have already taken that name. This is the first thumb rule telling that the name should be globally unique. I'll say, okay, fine, great. Since the name should be globally unique, I'll just put some characters out here. I'll say this is something, and I'll say enter. And as in when I start typing this out, so I'm just typing some random thing telling storage 9898 at the rate something like this so that the name can be unique. As in when I do that, Azure will now come back to you and tell, okay, fine, you know what, I have one more, let's say, thing that I need to tell you is that the name cannot contain special characters. Like at the rate, hyphen, exclamation, even space is considered to be a special character. Your name cannot have a special character. Also, your name cannot have uppercases. So the name, if you look at this one, can only contain lower case letters and numbers. Name must be between 3 to 24 characters. Minimum character length is 3, maximum is 24. you cannot breach any of the limit. 3 to 24 should be, let's say, the character limit out here. So name cannot have special characters, should only be between 3 and 24 character length. This is the rule that you need to follow when you are creating a storage account service. When I created a resource group, I did not, let's say, even look at all these things. We just went ahead, created a resource group out here, all good, not a problem. But when you are creating a storage account, there needs to be additional care that you need to take on what is really the naming convention of the same thing out here and so on and so forth. So these are the three naming, let's say, patterns that you need to follow. Then don't you think this is a little tricky, because there can be a lot of people who are using Azure out there. There can be a lot of, let's say, customers of Azure who would have already used all the names, right? Then how does a company design their names, or how does an organization go ahead and design their names? So it can be something like this, guys. Again, this is a generic pattern that I'm giving you. Organizations can take any kind of a name they would like, but if you need a name to be predictable, meaning you are a new resource who are coming into an organization, if I have to tell you that this is a storage account, looking at the name of the storage account, you will have to understand things like which team is, let's say, owning this particular storage account, or which project is working on this particular storage account, or where is the storage account really located, and all these things. So normally we go ahead, and what do we do is that we take the name of a team. For example, let's say a storage account belongs to a team called development team. So I'll say the name of the team, or the name of the storage account, starts with something called dev dev, telling that it is belonging to something called developer. If it is QA, I'll say it is QA. If it is DevOps, I'll say it is DevOps. Some kind of a name out here that I'm giving. So I'll say dev dev. This belongs to something known as a dev team, and the dev team is working on a project called, let's say, IRCTC is an application. They are working on a project. They are creating or they're creating to this particular storage account to store all the data of IRCTC. So I'll put the name of the project, IRCTC. And this particular, let's say, team wants me to create the storage account service in a location called Central US. I will say CUS. And this is the first storage account that I'm creating for them. So I'll say one. It's a combination now of the name of the team plus the name of the project they are working for, the name of the region plus the instance number, meaning is it one, is it second storage, the third storage, fourth, so on and so forth. This can be an example. Again, you can have the name of the project first, name of the team next. You can have anything, you can have any combination, whichever works for your organization. But before the organization goes ahead and starts creating all these resources, they think about all these things, that how should my naming convention be. And it's always good to have a predictable naming convention, so that you can tell, okay, fine, this is your project and all that stuff. So what I'll do, I'll just take all these things. I'll just, sorry, I'll just take this name. I'll just go into the Azure portal, and instead of giving this name out here, I'll just put this name in, and doesn't throw an error because it qualifies all the fields. 3 to 24 characters, yes. Only lowercase numbers and letters, yes. Name doesn't contain any special characters, yes. So I have all these three, let's say, ticked out. That's the reason it's telling, okay, fine, you do not have any issue, you are good to proceed. And this is a mandatory field. Storage account name becomes a mandatory field out here. And very importantly, guys, once you give a storage account name, you cannot change it later. You give a name out here, you create a storage account service, you cannot change the name later. That's the thumb rule basically that you need to follow. Again, if you want to change a name, same thing applies. What applies to a resource group, you'll have to delete it and recreate it back again out here. Go ahead, please. Mm, yes, we're selecting resource group, correct. Mhm. Correct. Correct, we are creating a new resource group out here, correct. Mhm. Mhm. Once you create a new resource group, how can you give the subscription? When you say give the subscription, what exactly do you mean by that? Mhm. Correct. In a subscription, I'm giving the subscription here. This is my subscription. This is the name of my subscription. And it's telling under a subscription, I'm creating a resource group. Subscription, and we'll go ahead and let's say create the resource group. Yes. So here, initially when we created a resource group, it was asking what is your subscription. When you're creating a storage account, now it's asking what is your subscription. And under the same subscription where you're creating a storage account. Mhm. Okay. Okay. We are giving two subscriptions. Again, if you have two subscriptions, yes, you can give two different subscriptions. But again, when you are creating a storage account, you will have to, or you can only attach your storage account to one resource group at a given point in time. So that's the reason it's a one-to-one relationship. So you can at max pass one resource group name here. And as and when you change the resource group, right? Even the subscription, if the resource group is under a different subscription, even the subscription will change or subscription can change. So it's all a one-to-one because one resource group at any given point in time can only be under attached to one particular subscription out here. So that's the reason it's this particular relationship that we are maintaining. Yes.
Sir,
Good, please.
when we create the storage account name should be unique, no, sir?
Yeah.
After if we delete that storage account, can we create the same name using storage account name? Because already we have deleted, no, sir?
Good question is that if I create a storage account and I delete it,
Yeah,
let's
sir.
say I want to create it in a different region with the same name, can I create it? Yes, you can. But after you delete it, you will have to give Azure a time period of 15 to 20 minutes. This is
Okay.
called name reservation time, because what it does is that when you create a name, it reserves that particular name in the background. Once you delete it, the background server should erase that name, which will take about 15 minutes. So once you
Okay.
delete it, please wait for about 15 minutes and then you can recreate this out again.
Okay.
Yes. Any more questions? It's a region specific, correct. It's a region specific resource. Mhm. Okay. Okay. When you say logged into East US, okay, from East US region, you can, you can. Here, the concept is that when I say region specific, at any given point in time, one storage account can only sit in one particular region. When I say one particular region, what do I mean by that is this. I'll just come down. I'll say region out here. And there are a lot of regions. All these are nothing but the data centers of Azure that are across the world. And it's telling their recommended regions and all that stuff. What it means is very simple. When you are creating a storage account, all you want to do is store some data. But this is just a virtual resource. This is called as a virtual resource, meaning Azure is telling this is a virtual resource. I'm giving it to you. But in the background, what Azure does is that this storage account in the background, not really. So just a second. In the background, you will have an actual physical server that Microsoft has already purchased. They have stored it in some different region. I'm now selecting an ECS2 region. So what Azure does is that they attach this virtual resource to a physical resource. And when you as a user goes ahead, saves some data inside this particular storage account, this data is ideally sitting in this server. This server will have a lot of racks, and each and every rack will have some kind of a hard drive. That data will be sitting in the hard drive of that particular server, which means that your data is hosted out of a server which is sitting in a data center that is in an East US2 region. Which means that if I am a user, I want to access your data. What I do is that I don't know the name of the server in which your data is sitting in. I cannot know that because this server is handled by Azure. So Azure will not give you the name of the server, but Azure will give you the name of the storage account. So what I do as a user is that I request to this particular storage account that, what, can you give me this specific data? So as a user using a laptop, using your own laptop, you can go ahead, send a request to this particular storage account telling that the data you have, some kind of unstructured data you have, can you give me that image? The storage account will simply say, okay, fine, hold on for a second. Let me go back into that particular server, get you all the data, and send this data across to you to your laptop, irrespective wherever you are. But one quick thing that you need to observe here is this. Let's say the same model, okay? And now you decide, sorry, let me go ahead put this in once more again. I say this is first RG, first storage RG. Let me see
Excuse
if
me,
I,
sir. Sir,
just a second, just a second.
okay.
I'll take your question. So I'm putting this in, and now you want to decide which region you want to create this out. Again, region is something that you cannot change after you create a storage account. Very, very important. Name you cannot change, region you cannot change. This is a decision that you need to, let's say, take with a little bit of caution. Reason being, let's say that this storage account is used for a project called IRCTC. This contains all the train details. You are a user from India. You open that particular application called irctc.co.in, and you go to one specific section of the application telling train details. As and when you click on the train details, it will say, okay, fine, let me go to backend storage account. It says, okay, fine, in the backend storage account, it's telling, can you give me the data? The backend storage account will go all the way to the server who's sitting in East US2, and it will tell the server that, what, someone in India is requesting for this particular data. Can you give it to me? The server will tell, okay, fine, not a problem. I'll give it to you. The server will respond back to the storage account. The storage account will respond back to IRCTC. IRCTC will respond back to you. All this time period between you click that particular thing, get the data, and the time you actually get the data is called as a latency. This decides how good you or how bad your application is. Imagine you clicking on IRCTC, you go get your coffee, and after that you get, let's say, the data. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes. If that is the time it takes, I don't think anyone will be using this particular service, because my time is very precious. I cannot, let's say, wait just to see a train detail. I cannot wait for about 10 minutes out there. The end goal of a company is to reduce this particular latency and improve the performance of an application. There are two ways in which they can do it. They can either get the customer close to their business, which means that whenever a user is booking a ticket, I'll have to tell him, what, boss, you are sitting in India, you cannot book a ticket from India. Come to US, book a ticket, then go back to India, take a train. Is that a good solution? You cannot bring a customer close to your business. The other thing is that, can you take your business close to your, let's say, customer? Yes, that's what we do. Is that we choose a region which is close to our business. In my case, let's say Central India, because the end user of this particular storage account is a user who's sitting in India. So what I want to do is I want to reduce the latency out there. I want to reduce how quick or let's say how slow or how fast my application really is. This is one of the crucial factors that decides the creation of your storage account, and this is something that is well thought out before you go ahead and create a storage account out here. Reason being, you cannot change the region. You'll have to live with that. You'll have to live with it until unless you delete this out here as such. Does that answer your question? Firstly,
Sir,
any follow-up questions, sir?
sir,
Just
like,
a second. Just a
yeah,
second. Just a second. I'm just taking a
okay,
question offline. I'll just come back to you. Just to give me a second.
okay, sir.
Yes, go ahead, please. The region, yes. You cannot really change the region. Not really. Not really. On top of, let's say, a DevOps team or an administration team, there will be there'll be something known as an architect team. Okay, there's someone who thinks about all these things, telling which region should I go for. If I go for Central India, what is the cost I'm paying it? If I go for East US, is there a different cost I'm paying for this particular service? And they will tell you which region you need to create. As a DevOps engineer or as an administrator, you are not expected to take this decision. You can suggest your client telling that this is what is the factor, but you are not expected to take a decision. Yes, someone online had a question. I'll just take that and come back offline. Yes,
Sir,
go ahead, please. Hmm.
in when we create the storage account is there, no sir, we creating in that admin. So
Okay.
can he is the storage account can we able to create in contributor role which user has?
Can a contributor role? Can you tell me? Can you try it out and tell me if a contributor will be able to create it? So, bare basic question: can a contributor create a storage account? Yes. No.
Yes, sir. No, sir. Like
Should it be able to create? Yes. No.
only the
Yes.
contributor has no
Mhm.
access. Like he will not able to create that user and delete the user.
Yes, exactly. Apart
Okay.
from creating or deleting the user, the contributor has all the accesses like the owner does,
So
which
like
means the
reader
contributor will be able
also
to create.
not able to create that storage account when it comes to the
Reader
reader.
will definitely not be able to create a storage account. Contributor will be able to create a storage account.
Okay, sir.
Contributor has all the access as an owner has, apart from user
Create the
creation
user
or
and
user deletion and all these things.
sir, like already when we creating the storage account, so
Mhm.
you just have created the new resource group, no sir?
Correct.
Already we have created a resource group. So we
Okay.
given the region something like if we give the US
Hmm.
like that we given sir. So it already
Okay.
created in the
Okay.
resource group. Uh,
Okay.
creating the storage group, we already given that already we have one tester resource group is there. So when
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
giving the access to the tester resource group here,
Okay.
yes. So can the reason should be same or can we change that reason? Like
Good question is that okay? Good question is that should the resource group and the resource, like a storage account, be in the same region? Not necessarily. You don't really have to have your resource group and your resources in the same region. It is not a mandate, but it is a good to have, let's say, scenario. It's good so that I can manage everything in the same region out there as such. So
okay, sir.
normally you create the resource group and also the resources in the same region. If let's say it
Oh,
is ECUS, if project is following the same thing, then it's good to, let's say, create both of them in the same. But having that said, you can have your resource group in any location, storage account in any location, will not impact anything.
okay.
Yes, someone online had a question, I'll take that. Sorry, offline had a question, I'll take that. Someone offline in the offline class have a question. Yes. Okay, what I want you all to do is just go through something called as a data types. Just understand in a technical terminology on what is a structured and what is an unstructured data. After that, just come down to, let's say, docs.microsoft.com. Go to a product called Azure. Once you are inside this, just go here and search for, let's say there is a search window out here. Let's say the right corner, you say yes. Yes, you can search for something known as storage accounts. Just click on this one, storage account, on what storage account release, or if you just want to do a Google search on what is Azure storage account, even this is something which is okay for me, wherein it is going to tell you what kind or what is a storage account out here, what are the types of storage account, and all these things will take around 10 minutes to read. Please go through this before you come down to tomorrow's session, and tomorrow we'll continue with multiple attributes of a storage account. like location, performance. There's something called redundancy. There are a lot of things basically that we need to cover. So we'll cover and create our first storage account out there, right? So again, guys, please revise the concepts on a daily basis. Please try it out. Just not looking at the video, but please try it out. That's where you can take the best advantage of this particular course. Yes, any questions before I close? Yes. Mhm. Okay. Okay. If required region is not available, then we will go for the nearest region that is available close to your required. For example, let's say as of now you don't have, let's say, storage account services that are there in China or something like that. You cannot do China and all that stuff directly with your Azure account. So somewhere close to it, I'll say okay, fine, somewhere close to region, and then we can create a storage account. We can request Microsoft telling that we need a data center, but it'll take actually a lot of years to establish a data center. It costs a lot of money for them to, let's say, do that. So a nearest region, even if it's a nearest region, right? Let's say you are putting it in India. Instead of putting it in India, let's say you put it in, let's say, some country like Europe. The time latency is actually not noticeable at all. So your application will not, let's say, the down performance of your application will not be very high out there. So if the region is not available, go for the nearest available region out there. Okay, good, please.
I
No, no, that's
can.
fine. Good. Yes, good, please. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. 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 Oh, will it be the same region? Will it take the nearest region? In this model, yeah, in this model, it will come to central India. It will have to come to central India. The latency will be slightly higher. The latency is good. Yes, there will be. Correct. There will be a latency between the Indian person and the US person, depending upon where your data center is actually sitting. So yes, there will be a latency in this case. Okay, I am little on top of the hour today, so we'll continue with the questions tomorrow. We'll start with questions and then we'll start with the topic. So if you have any questions, please park it. I'll take it in the morning and I'll address those things after. Okay. Thanks, guys, and have a good day ahead.